Right, it's 10 o'clock, so we're going to get started. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jessica Philippe from the South Central Regional Library Council. My pronouns are she, her. Thank you for joining us for the ESLN Services webinar series. In today's session, we'll be hearing about Empire State Immersive Experiences. Before we get started, I'd like to take care of some housekeeping. We will be utilizing the chat as well as the Q&A feature for this webinar. We'd appreciate it if you could change your settings so your messages are going to everyone rather than hosts and panelists. You can change this by opening your chat box and clicking on the drop-down menu above the text box. Feel free to introduce yourself there now. Please use the Q&A feature to ask questions so they don't get lost in the chat. You can find that towards the bottom center of your screen. Our presenter will be taking questions after their presentation. Live captioning is available for this webinar. To toggle the subtitles on or off, click the live transcript button at the bottom of your screen and choose either show subtitle or hide subtitle. This webinar will be recorded and a link to the recording will be shared in the next few days. The email containing the link will also provide information about getting a certificate of attendance. The forms to both request a certificate of attendance and evaluate this webinar will also be posted in the chat towards the end of this session. If you are unfamiliar with ESLN, this refers to Empire State Library Network, an organization comprising the 9 Reference and Research Library Resources Councils, each a multi-type library system in New York State. ESLN's unique structure provides support for libraries and archives of all types and sizes into a statewide platform for shared services and collaborations. To spread the word about the work we're doing on behalf of New York libraries, we have scheduled webinars with staff and service providers on the last Friday of each month at 10 a.m. This is the 4th of a 9-part webinar series exploring the various services ESLN has to offer. We'll be covering such topics as New York Heritage, Ask the Lawyer, Empire Library Delivery, and more. You must register for each webinar separately, and they are free and open to all. If you're interested in more sessions in the ESLN Services webinar series, you can visit the ESLN website, and we will put a link to that in the chat. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenter, Jay Barone from the Western New York Library Resources Council. Good morning, Jay.
Morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. As stated, I'm Jay Barone. I am the Technology Services Coordinator from the Western New York Library Resources Council, or WNYLRC. I'm here to talk to you guys today about one of the platforms that we run called Empire State Immersive Experiences, or ESIE. Slide here. All right, so a little bit about ESIE. So ESIE is a platform for digitization and a repository for digital representations of places and experiences. It functions kind of like New York Heritage, except instead of documents that are being digitized, we are going to digitize places. And we do this through 360-degree panoramic photos. There are a lot of new consumer electronics coming on the market and have been for the last few years that allow you to take true 360-degree photos. And we use those on ESIE to provide access to places that people may not have their physical access to. You can also link these tours together or link these images together into a multi-image tour to give an area or a place of interest a presence online. We also add a lot of linked data so that we have metadata that you put in when you are uploading images that allows these to be indexed and searched. So users and the public can locate the images that they're looking for and find things that are of interest to them that may aid in whatever information need that they have. All of our content is Creative Commons licensed. We intend this to be available for free educational reuse, and all images that are put on it are licensed for educational reuse by anyone who is able to access them. The URL is at the bottom of the page there is easy.space. If you want to go at any time, feel free to peruse. I'll take you on a little tour of it. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about the history and how this came about. Several years ago, there was a professor from, I believe, the Buffalo State College around here who was working with a simultaneously local and remote class. And several points in his lessons found that there were bits of the class that didn't quite translate remotely because they involved something in the lab. They involved knowing where machines were located in relation to one another and things like that that were never really considered when the class was taken online. So this professor was looking for a way that he could bring the remote students in to his lab without physical access to give them another window into the experience of the in-person students. And this was shortly before COVID, but shortly after, COVID hits. This request has made it to our librarians, who are now realizing that their buildings are shut down and they have an entire group of students that are coming to campus, or maybe coming to campus or attending their school, that have never been there and cannot because of current travel restrictions. So it was sort of made really obvious how a representation of space could be important for our academic institutions. And so we developed this platform as a place to put these representations, but not just for academics, but also for people in our councils, our museums, our local historical societies, or even potentially individuals who would use the capabilities to tell a story and somehow fill in more of the heritage of New York State and give us a better picture of our shared history. So from there, we built ESIE. This is built on the Archipelago platform, which is run by the Metro Library Services Council. It is also on top of Drupal, and it allows us a very flexible input and output system for all sorts of different digital things. In our case, we're mostly dealing with panoramic images and some still images, but the system is very flexible and allows us to accommodate all sorts of different content. So I mentioned earlier how 360 cameras are starting to come on the market and have been for about 5 years now. We've noticed that there are several different brands available. They all have roughly the same capability, and they're not that expensive. We've been running a grant program here at WinnieLurk that provides some funding to build a camera kit so organizations are able to do their own imaging. And we found that you can get a fully functional kit for under $750. And this includes media, tripods, shades. It's much more than just the hardware itself. A lot of these also have audio capability, which allows you to record audio in the same space where you are recording your image. If you want to add that into your tour, you can have spatialized audio from inside your image that is available to your users. There's also GPS support, which can allow a localization of exactly where your photograph was taken automatically and would allow some searching by geographic location. These are features that we're implementing right now that we're really excited about coming out soon, where we use that GPS to automatically locate where your images are. The only caveat we have is the phone panoramas are unfortunately not what ESIE uses. I know it's very common to use the standard pan-around phone app that puts together multiple images into a panorama. We're discussing more multiple lensed, full 360 images that capture the totality of a scene without moving like a phone cam would. I have several examples here on the screen. The Insta360 is the one that sort of opens up like a book there. Below that, we have a Ricoh Theta, although if you were to purchase a Ricoh Theta, I caution you, do not buy the M15. It is not up to spec. The rest of them are fantastic. The M15 was a bit of a misstep. I wouldn't recommend buying that. Kitty corner from that little Johnny 5 looking one is the Views XR. That has excellent audio capability as well as 360 video. And below that is a GoPro Max, which a lot of our users have they've purchased those for their projects. It's really flexible. It has vast aftermarket support. It's not particularly expensive, and the UI is really accessible to use for people. These are the cameras that we recommend that you use with ESIE. However, there are other 360 cameras on the market. If you have one and you want to know how it lines up with us spec-wise, there is information on our site, or you can contact me directly and I'll let you know. So, once you have your equipment, you're all set. If you go to esie.space, this is the page that you will see. This is our initial image, which is the Union Ship Canal here in Lackawanna, New York. This is an old steel ladle from the Republic's steel mill that is placed at the end of the ship canal as sort of a memorial to the workers who worked in the plant and provided a lot of the economic engine of Buffalo for so long. We have our exploration buttons up at the top. Those allow you to explore panoramas in a variety of different ways, by location, by the institution which posted them, by a subject. We have our Panorama Tours, which is one of our bread and butter features that I will be discussing in further depth shortly. And then further at the bottom of our page, we have another set of menus. It's not quite visible here to make the screenshot legible, but below this, there's a bunch of submenus that will allow you to access our suggested equipment list, some disclaimer and copyright information, and a detailed LibGuide on how to do this that also includes photography tips and a step-by-step guide to uploading. Those are for your reference in the future, or if you have any questions about this, you can always contact me. So from this, the first thing one would want to do would be to make an account. Accounts are available to anyone. Right now, our functionality was initially limited to only WinnieLurk members. We've since expanded that into the Rochester Council as well, and we are looking forward to making this accessible to everyone throughout the state. The only thing I ask is if you are from another council that is not Rochester or WinnieLurk, that you contact me so I can make sure that your account goes through. We get a tremendous amount of spam on these accounts. You'd be very surprised. But the account process is very basic. I need an email address. You need to choose a username. You need to input your name. Not shown here is a dropdown for council. You'd simply pick the council that your organization is affiliated with, and you click create new account. You will not get access immediately. That account will be held for moderation. I need to approve it. So if you give me about 24 hours to do that, it's usually sooner. However, like I said, since this is a manual approval process, I really encourage you, if you sign up, to use verifiable credentials. If you're signing up from a mail.ru address or a .xyz top level domain, I'm probably not going to let you in because that's a red flag for spam accounts. So if you have an institutional affiliation, or even if you don't, if you have a personal email, simply filling this out with the proper information, with your actual name, your actual last name, goes a long way towards making sure that your account gets on there quickly. So once these are filled out, you will have access to ESIE. And this has two levels. You'll start off at a contributor level, which is a very quick single page input form for uploading panoramas. And more advanced users can choose a curator, who can be granted a curator level that has more control over metadata and allows you to build panorama tours as well. Once an account is registered, you'll see several menus will appear on the homepage that weren't there originally when you were logged in. The one we're going to be looking for is create, and that allows you to create the listed items. We have panorama, panorama tour, and this says any digital object, but if you look at it now, it will say other digital object, because we don't accept any digital objects. We are only specific types, photographs, videos. However, this is an example of the ongoing development that's always happening. I'm the administrator of this site. I look over it a lot. I try to engage our users in getting their feedback and how we can improve it. So there's a constant ongoing design process that's making this more responsive to people. So if one chooses panorama to add a panorama, we'll show an example of, this is the one-page form that I discussed earlier to add your digital object. And this is all the metadata that needs to be input initially in order to upload panoramas. I need a title. It needs a place that it was. You need the file. You need a description of what that file is. You need an address or a location. And now if you click into that street address, you will be given a OpenStreetMaps window that will allow you to choose a location based on the OpenStreetMaps service. We have creator, which is the person who took the photo, and the date that it was taken. Once those are filled out, we click the checkbox that you agree to the terms of service, make your images Creative Commons, etc., and the submit buttons right below that, and success. That is as easy as it is, no pun intended, to upload a photo to ESIE. The contributor form allows really simple, this could be used by students, it could be used by volunteers, with the curator profile having some oversight over this and able to add and adjunct information into the panoramas, which are uploaded by the initial contributor. You'll see that this has our image over to the right-hand side. There are a couple empty boxes for the subjects. Those are the link data that I alluded to earlier that a curator is able to add, and we will cover those features right now. The first feature that curators are able to add is an extensive set of link data. We have widgets in here that respond to different thesauruses. We currently have Wikidata, the Getty Art and Architecture thesaurus, as well as a Library of Congress, and then an unlinked personal names agent and role database. This allows for controlled vocabulary being entered without the need for a controlled vocabulary on the site itself. We rely on Wikidata, the Getty online thesaurus, as well as the links to Library of Congress to provide those terms for users so that we can make sure that our metadata is correct and that everything corresponds to the object that it is linked to, and they are all established standardized terms, which allows searching to be made much, much easier. And it allows a lot greater level of granularity when you are trying to add your metadata, should you so desire it. You're not limited to simply the 2 inputs that are seen here. You can add multiples and they will all appear on your linked data sidebar, and they will be accessible through a subject search for those terms. It's a really easy way for us to exercise some control over that. And then finally, the last thing that the curator can do, which is probably, in my opinion, the coolest thing about ESIE, is build a panorama tour. This takes multiple panoramic images and links them together so that a user can traverse a space virtually without leaving their desktop or even their mobile phone. It's all built through a very easy to use interface, and you simply add a title for your panorama tour and you add scenes. So your scenes are your panoramic images, which have already been uploaded. So you will upload your images first, and then you will build a tour out of those images. The tours are linked together with what we call hotspots. And hotspots are of multiple types. You can see down this menu over here, we have hotspot type. That allows, we have different types of hotspots that allow different data adjuncts into here. Text will provide a pop-up text. For example, a mouse over for a new shelf. You can put a point that when moused over will say, this is the new items. You can also add other still images. You can add audio. You can add video. The interface for doing so is very, very fiddly. It does work, but I encourage you, if you are doing audio or video projects, to also get in touch with me so we can make sure that goes smoothly and that you can present what you would like. But also the hotspots allow links between the panoramas. So for example, here, this is a picture of Delaware Park in Buffalo. The plus sign at the center of this is one of our hotspots that links it to another photo further down the path. With enough of these photos nested together and linked together, you can fully recreate an area in 360 photographs and allow someone to view it either on their desktop, like I said, on their phone, or even in virtual reality to provide an even more immersive experience from your home without ever leaving anywhere. So there are tons of different ways that you can use the Panorama Tour functionality. It just depends on how much work you want to put in and how much thought you want to devote towards making your presentation the way you would like it to be. It's not simply a thing for academic libraries to provide tours of their buildings. We've also had this used by a class. It was a home care nursing class that realized in the pandemic that part of their nursing course was building a apartment that people, the students, would enter, and they would assess this apartment for various health hazards and conditions, just like they would if they were providing home care. And the pandemic hit, and no one was allowed to go into this building. So we had to build a virtual version of their home care experience apartment that students could use so that they could still participate in this coursework despite not being able to physically be present there. We've also had museums. The Roger Tory Peterson Institute is using ESIE to build an interactive version of one of their smaller exhibits that can be put online and used to sort of showcase what materials they have. They're in a rural area, they're kind of hard to locate, but they have a fantastic collection. And this allows access anywhere in the world for people who are interested in Roger Tory Peterson, interested in birds, or even interested in naturalist art. We've also had public libraries that have partnered with schools to capture a nature trail that was part of an environmental science curriculum at the local high school. They photographed the various ponds and boardwalks that exist in this nature preserve and made a tour of it with annotations for the different wildlife or naturalist features that they saw on there. It was really interesting, and that was a use that we didn't expect to see. So I really like when people take the idea of linked tours and run with it, because there's fantastic things that you can do with these. I think it's a very new way to preserve history, and it's a way to preserve it on a local level. I've spoken briefly about Lackawanna, New York, where I did a tour, and I did this tour with a resident who is approaching 90 years old and has lived his entire life in Lackawanna and has seen the changes that this town has gone through. And we took photos of many of the buildings that had changed. We linked those with photos of the same locations in the past. And then he provided me with a narration of stories, of remembrances about these different places. And we are going to put that on ESIE and make that available to people as a way for historical societies to preserve their local areas by using the people that they have and the buildings and history that already exists around them. So that is pretty much everything I have about the ESIE platform. This is my contact information here. I'm available jbarone@winnylurk.org. Like I said, I'm the administrator of the site. I run a lot of the things, I make a lot of the changes. So if you have ideas, if you want access, if you need help with your photographs, and if you have some burning desire to make something really cool happen with 360 images, please contact me. I would love to see what you guys have to come up with. And I really hope that you embrace the possibilities of ESIE, what this can be used for and what it can preserve, and how that fits into all of the other services that we have to preserve our heritage, how this can adjunct those and provide a bolster and another layer of understanding for people about all of our shared history. So thanks for listening to me for a while. If you have any questions, I would be delighted to answer them. But this is the end of my presentation, and I thank you oh so much for your presence here.
So our first question is, could you take us into the site and show us around a little bit?
Certainly.
I'm wondering if you have a favorite immersive experience.
Yeah. Let me get everything in a row here. And let's this. All right. This is the front page of ESIE. You've already seen this, but as I stated before, right underneath here, we have several other options. We have our places, our institutions, our subjects, additional information down here. Let's go by institution. So I mentioned the home care experience. That was done by Niagara County Community College. So this was very quick, and this uses all the hotspots that we have here. This is the apartment that they set up. I could actually full screen this. And as you can see, you can move around here. This is a room set up with mannequins and different things to monitor. This is a hotspot that will take you to another tour, in this case, or another image, in this case, the bathroom. And these are the informational hotspots. We have an image. In this case, this was to assess whether this patient is taking their medication. So we've got this is to call attention to this. We have other things in here that could be coffee table covered with beer cans. Maybe not the best place for this patron to be, for this person to be, and that would be something to be aware of. And that's how they used the platform. We also have, let me see, go to explore by places. This are some of the Lackawanna images that I referred to earlier. This here is the Lackawanna Public Library, which is the first library I worked at as a professional librarian. It is the last Carnegie Library completed in New York State. It's an absolutely gorgeous building, and I love it there. And this gives you, so we're zoomed, this was taken from across the street. You notice there's me sitting there. As a best practice, I've removed incidental things from these images, which I take you through in our LibGuide. There's a full guide to how to correctly take images to make sure that you are able to reuse them and to grant your copyright. And all of these, here we have our some metadata down here. This is an image collection, which we have grouped together all of these images into one that is not a tour, but it allows you to view the individual images. And we also have, if you guys are familiar with JSON and you like coding, this is the back-end code of all of these fun things that are available from your camera. And you can manipulate and play with that data in basically any way you want. So if you are a metadata JSON person, definitely get into that.
Our council is focused on accessibility recently, and I'm seeing a lot of potential applications for this just to show the accessibility features of the building, how you might enter it if you can't get in through the front door, things like that. Have you seen that being used at all?
Yes, I think it is in the Buff State got a new library very recently, and they did an extensive tour of it. And part of that one, I believe, marked very explicitly the locations for handicapped access, the different accommodations, their elevators. I think there was one that even had specific, these are elevators are for patrons who experience mobility issues. So you can do a lot of different adjuncts with that. It's just limited by what you would like to highlight within the image.
That's great. Somebody's asking, can you show us what a tour looks like with a VR headset?
I can't, unfortunately. Zoom and VR do not play along very well, but I guess I can describe. So as this is brought into full screen and it fills the entire browser window, it will do the same in your VR headset browser. And then you are able to swing around. That's actually very new. Previously, motion was determined by moving the hand controllers. However, the new build of the plugin that this uses does respond to motion. So you can look around, if your headset supports it, you can look around panoramas by simply moving your head just like you would normally. And it feels much like this. One of the things we tried to do was take photos as close to eye level at person height as we could to make sure that the VR experience wasn't jarring. If there's a difference in height between you and your image, it can be really weird in VR. So we're trying to keep it at head level. But it looks much like this, except it will move around. If you want a demo of it, I would suggest going to easy.space on your phone, pulling up any panorama, hitting this full screen button that's right here below the plus and minus. And when you move your phone, you'll see the image will respond to the accelerometer inputs. And that's pretty much how the VR headset works as well. It's just all around you.
Do you have a preferred VR headset? I'm just curious.
We have the Oculus 2. I forget the exact model. It's the latest one that we've been using. We had a previous Oculus Go that is no longer supported, and that did not have accelerometers built into it. So unfortunately, that was restricted to mouse navigation only. But the newer ones, I believe the new Vive as well will have the accelerometer features. We've tested on the Oculus Go, the newest Oculus 2, as well as a Vive, and they all played nice. However, we haven't kept up with it. So anything that's come out, I'd say in the last 6 months is probably untested. If you have one, please test it. If it works, let me know. If it doesn't, also let me know.
And Jenny is asking, what are some pitfalls you've seen participants experience that could conceivably be avoided through planning?
One big one is for Panorama Tours, it is very important to add your, actually, I'm logged in, I can do this, to add your scenes first. You need to, we will select, let's see, I'll just go for my Lackawanna 101, Lackawanna City Hall, add scene. Now this is in my list of scenes. If I want to add another one, say Lackawanna High School, add my scene here. These will pop up into the drop-down menu here. Only items which are in the drop-down can be added to your tour, and the only items that can be selected to be put in that drop-down are already uploaded on ESIE. So you have to upload the component panoramas first, and then add them all and link them into a tour. And it will really behoove you to think about how the links are based on where the photos are in space. The hotspots are only one way. So if I link from Lackawanna High School here to the Lackawanna City Hall, the hotspot will only appear where I place it in this panorama. If I want to be able to come back from City Hall to the high school, I need to add another hotspot in the City Hall that points to high school. It's a little confusing to describe, but once you start working with it, it gets kind of intuitive. But you have to think about where your items are located in space, and you need to add everything that you want to make into a tour before you make the tour.
Julia's asking, can we see a tour, please, of a historic site, perhaps?
Sure. Let's go over here. Niagara Falls State Park. So this is a very well-developed tour of Niagara Falls State Park, which was done by one of our contributors. This shows a lot of the functionality, including the external URL. If I were to click this, it would open the webpage of Niagara Falls State Park in a new tab. That demonstrates the URL functionality, and each of these images can be, well, be nice if it would load for me here. Well, it should take you to the next one. In fact, it has, but it doesn't seem to have brought itself up. I apologize for that. Let's see if we can make this work again. Here we go. Sometimes there are hiccups. If there are too many connections, there may be a hiccup. So this is inside the gate of Niagara Falls State Park, and there are various other places that you can go to from here. To head to the rapids, go through here. Here's another one. All of these are 360 images, which allow you full scrolling in all of these dimensions. Move further up here. Here's the rapids above the American Falls. We've got some informational hotspots. This lets you know that this is the American Falls. This is the rapids. This way to American Falls, and you can proceed down the path here. Here's one of the overlooks, which has additional hotspots. That's Canada. The American Falls here, Horseshoe Falls over there. This will take you right up to the observation deck, with a very familiar shot from those of us in Buffalo. Everyone takes a photo here. Also, we've got our hotspots here, which tell you what these things are. And all of these were added by one person who just walked around and took a whole bunch of photos and stitched them together into this panorama. I know there was some thoughts of adding a hotspot on this where you could click and it would bring up an image of what you could see through the binoculars. We weren't able to capture that very well. The lens just didn't play nice with the camera. But those are the sorts of things you can do. Further along, here's another spot on the path between the falls and I believe Luna Island. Our statue of Nikola Tesla. This is a demonstration of sort of what the tour functionality would look like for Niagara Falls State Park.
You can tell that people plan their projects around the weather.
Yeah.
Jim is commenting, when you look up or down with a VR headset, it looks distorted. I don't know if that's typically the case, or have you found that to be the case?
I know sometimes it will. It really depends on how the headset itself interprets the image. There are some that have trouble with, it's called JPEG rectilinear is the format. It has trouble with directly up and directly down. There are some things that you can do to mitigate that, but it also depends on a little bit the headset and the camera.
Mm-hmm. And Eileen is asking, what are some of the other digital objects people can upload?
So for right now, we upload, I've shown you guys some images in the home care experience. You can also upload audio and video objects. It's mostly AV, things like that. I think the biggest add would be the audio. You can attach an audio clip with an associated image into this. We're working on that. The only reason I don't show a full how-to on that is because the interface to do so is really, really fiddly. We're getting it revamped right now, so it'll be very user-friendly, and you can add things just with a click like normal. But for right now, AV items require some fiddling with the code. So it's not undoable, but it's just something that if you want to do, we should coordinate between the two of us for a little while until we roll out the new UI that'll make it super easy and super pretty to add audio and visual objects to your panoramas.
Julia's adding, it would be great to have a video clip you could add to the rapids at the falls.
Yeah, I think that is the idea, but like I said, the process of doing so involves editing directly the metadata after it's passed in a very specific way, and it's not difficult at all, but it is very fiddly. So we're hoping that that will be something that is made super easy in our next update that is should be out in a month or so, hopefully, if our timeline still holds.
Cool. And I'm wondering if you've thought about tying this into Google Maps at all, or if that's possible.
So there has been some thought. Google makes it very hard to use their map API in a way that we can fully integrate with it. We can link out to it. I've used the presentation feature in Google Earth, which is absolutely fantastic. It has full 3D fly-ins. I've used that where that links to tours on Easy, and then there are reciprocal links, but they don't perfectly play nice together. I hope Google will open up their map API, but we are also adding our own map-based system. That's another update that's forthcoming, where you'll be able to navigate the panoramas based on their physical location, which will hopefully add a little bit more of that Google Maps type search functionality into the mix. I think that's an avenue that we've been trying to pursue for a little while.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for showing us around, Jay.
Of course, my pleasure.
I'm not seeing any additional questions, so I want to thank you all for joining us today, and we hope that you join us for the next session in this series that's going to be covering Ask the Lawyer on May 27th. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time, everyone. Go enjoy Easy.